I'm JC. I am from Manila. That's the capital of the Philippines. I grew up there. I moved to the US, specifically New York, in 2005, and at the tender age of 21. Moving to New York was an adventure. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to grad school here, and I took that opportunity, and it opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities, including exploring myself. And earlier on, when I just moved to the U.S., I was so happy because you can be gay, you can be yourself, and you can do whatever you want. It was like the advent of the emergence of social media and social connection, social networks. People talk primarily through chat rooms. I was talking to this guy, and we were talking like probably like a good hour. We traded pictures, but usually you trade not face first. You just trade your like body pictures. And then, I look like light skin in that picture for some reason, and so you just assumed I was kind of like white. And then I said like I was Asian. He said like, "Oh, sorry, buddy. You seem to be a cool guy, but I'm not into Asians." Of course, it affected my self-confidence. I don't know how to respond to it initially because I am new. I grew up from a different culture, and I thought Americans are more welcoming to people from other places. 3 years after that, still with defeated, self-ego, I was on my way to Fire Island waiting for a friend of mine. We agreed that we're going to meet up at the train station in Jamaica. He's waiting for my train, and then I saw him coming in through the aisle, and there was this two white guys in front of us. Again, at first, they were chuckling. I didn't know what the reason was. I just ignored it, and then they kind of like started pointing at my friend who was like having difficulty walking through the aisle, and then they started laughing because they said like, "Oh, look at that Asian guy! It's going to Far Island," and it chuckled. So I tried to ignore it because you can interpret that in many ways. But then one of them said that, "Who would fuck him?" So I kind of like tried to tap one of them, and I said, "Hey guys, there's another Asian guy behind you." Not that I'm eavesdropping, but I think that was not funny. But they were nice enough to apologize, and they said they were just joking. That was very insensitive of us, and I took their apology, and it gave me kind of like a that was the first time I actually felt that if you stand up, and then if you call out people, you actually stop the behavior, or at least you feel that you did something for yourself. I've met a lot of friends who I consider now like brothers and or sisters, and they're like amazing friends, and even them, I have like multiple experiences where they would make the same exact kind of like statements. One good example is while we were in Uber going to a party after a pregame, they're looking at through their Grindr, and then they're like browsing through the boys, and then they saw this one picture of a guy, and then they're like, "Oh, it's cute, it's hot," and then one of them said, "He looks Asian, move." And I was like, "Guys, I'm right next to you. There's only three of us here at the back seat. What do you mean by that? I thought we were friends." And they apologized, which is good because they're my friends. But deep inside, it does affect me, and it does affect how I see myself and how I communicate with other people. It is important for me to speak up for myself and for others because if I don't, and if they don't, nobody will. And we live in a very diverse society, and we have um, each of us has a role to play and has something to give.